December 12, 2022. At 9:03 a.m., during a quarterly staff meeting at Vanguard Metrics in Cincinnati, Ohio, 33-year-old data analyst Leo Camden collapsed mid-sentence while delivering a presentation on internal audit anomalies. His final words, "And if you look here, you'll notice." Then he fell. The fluorescent lights of conference room 3B cast harsh shadows across Leo's face as he slumped forward. His laser pointer clattered across the polished table, spinning to a stop at the edge. For 3 excruciating seconds, nobody moved. The projected graph, showing unusual payment patterns, remained frozen on screen. Melissa Daniels, head of HR, was the first to react. "Leo. Leo." Her voice cracked as she rushed to his side, knocking over her water bottle. The liquid spread across her printed meeting agenda, blurring the words, "Internal Audit Review," into blue smudges. Someone screamed. Another person fumbled with their phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "He's not breathing," Melissa said, her face draining of color. She'd taken a first aid course last summer but now found herself forgetting everything. "Does anyone know CPR?" Daniel Wright, IT security lead, pushed through the stunned crowd. He loosened Leo's tie with efficient movements and began chest compressions. The rhythmic pressure made Leo's body jerk unnaturally against the commercial carpet. Wright's face remained impassive, but sweat beaded along his hairline as he counted under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 minutes later, paramedics pronounced Leo Camden dead at the scene. "Cause, acute cardiac arrest," the medic said initially. A tragic case of a young professional burning out. People murmured about how Leo had been working 60-hour weeks, how the audit season always pushed him to the edge. Everyone nodded knowingly. Until the autopsy came back. Detective Elaine Merrow stared at the toxicology report on her desk 3 days later. The medical examiner had circled one finding in red, aconitine, derived from monkshood, a rare and potent poison. Someone had deliberately ended Leo Camden's life in the middle of a corporate meeting, surrounded by witnesses. Slipped into his morning smoothie, Dr. Halston had explained, showing her the stomach contents. Acts quickly once it enters the bloodstream. Presents like cardiac arrest initially. He probably felt tingling in his extremities first, then numbness. Pain would have followed. Paralysis. Then heart failure. Elaine pictured Leo standing at the front of the room, perhaps feeling his fingers go numb, wondering why he suddenly couldn't grip his clicker properly. Did he know what was happening? Did he realize, in those final moments, that he was dying? The detective's first interview was with the person who had handed Leo that smoothie, his intern, Sasha Brewer, a quiet 24-year-old with sharp eyes and a resume that listed exceptional grades from Ohio State. It was part of the new team-building wellness program, Sasha explained, sitting completely still in the precinct's interview room. Her hands were folded neatly on the metal table. HR started it last month. Healthy smoothies for presenters before big meetings. To reduce stress. Something about her posture struck Elaine as rehearsed. The detective made a note to verify this wellness program. "You handed him the smoothie that morning?" Elaine asked. "Yes. He specifically asked me to get it for him." Elaine nodded, letting the silence stretch. She'd found that people often filled uncomfortable silences with unplanned admissions. Not Sasha. She simply held the detective's gaze. "Tell me about your relationship with Leo," Elaine said finally. "Professional. He was my supervisor. We worked well together." Sasha's eyes flicked to the clock on the wall. "He was teaching me financial forensics. Said I had an eye for inconsistencies." When Elaine checked with Melissa Daniels later that day, the HR director seemed confused. "Wellness program? We never started anything like that. We discussed it at a leadership retreat in October, but it was just an idea." Leo's phone provided the next contradiction. A text message from the morning of his death. "Please don't forget, almond butter only. No banana this time. No mention of any smoothie. Elaine requested the building's security footage. At 8:11 a.m., cameras captured Sasha entering the building cafe alone. She approached the counter, ordered something, and waited, periodically checking her phone. No interaction with Leo. He was already in conference room 3B, setting up his presentation slides. The cafe worker remembered Sasha clearly. She ordered a green smoothie with protein powder. Asked me to add something from her own container, said it was a special supplement. Not unusual, people bring their own protein powders all the time. Where had the poison come from? And why Leo Camden? The detective returned to Vanguard Metrics the following day, this time to examine Leo's workspace. His cubicle was painfully organized, color-coded folders, labeled trays, post-it notes arranged by priority. A framed photo of Leo with an older man, his father, Elaine learned, stood beside his monitor. Leo's workstation computer yielded nothing unusual, just the standard presentation he'd been giving when he collapsed. But when Elaine asked about his personal devices, a coworker mentioned he often worked on his MacBook. Always had it with him, said Rebecca Chen, who occupied the adjacent cubicle. Said he liked having his own setup for certain projects. Her voice dropped. He was careful about some things. Especially these past few weeks. The MacBook wasn't in Leo's cubicle or his apartment. Elaine put out an alert for it. 3 days later, a janitor found it tucked behind a filing cabinet in the third-floor supply closet. When the tech team recovered its contents, the twist in the case became clear. Leo had been preparing a second presentation, one he never delivered. Titled simply, "They Know. So Do I." The detective scrolled through the slides, her stomach tightening. Here was motive, laid out in meticulous detail: doctored invoices, duplicate vendor contracts, Slack messages implying bribes disguised as consulting fees. All pointing to systematic fraud orchestrated by one senior executive, Gail Mercer, VP of Operations. He was going to expose her, Elaine murmured, studying the evidence Leo had compiled. The final slide was particularly damning, a timeline showing how Gail had gradually siphoned nearly $2.3 million through shell companies over 18 months. When confronted with this discovery, Vanguard Metrics immediately launched an internal review. The CEO, Martin Winters, assured Detective Merrow that they would cooperate fully with her investigation. "We're as shocked as you are," he said, his handshake firm but his eyes avoiding direct contact. Leo was a valued team member. If he found irregularities, we want to know. But within a week, the company abruptly shut down their audit, citing internal miscommunication and procedural misunderstandings. "We've determined that Leo's concerns, while well-intentioned, resulted from his misinterpretation of our complex vendor management system," the company's legal counsel explained in a carefully worded email. Elaine didn't buy it. She kept digging. The more she investigated Sasha Brewer, the more inconsistencies emerged. Her employment records contained all the right documents, but something about them felt wrong. A call to Ohio State revealed they had no record of a student by that name graduating in the year she claimed. Facial recognition software matched Sasha's driver's license photo to a different name, Mar 11, a college dropout from Flagstaff, Arizona with a sealed juvenile record. One of the fake references on her resume contained a phone number that, when traced, connected to a shell contractor that appeared on one of Gail Mercer's questionable vendor lists. "I've never met this Sasha person outside of work functions," Gail insisted when Elaine questioned her. The VP sat in her corner office, a view of the city spread out behind her. "I certainly had nothing to do with hiring her. That's HR's domain." But her right hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass, and Elaine noticed she'd cleared her desk of personal items. The next morning, Gail Mercer resigned, citing personal reasons. By afternoon, she'd emptied her office. By evening, she was on a flight to Vancouver. Sasha's apartment had been cleaned out too. Her landlord said she'd paid the remaining 3 months of her lease in cash and left no forwarding address. They're connected, Elaine told her partner, Detective James Rhodes, as they stood in Sasha's empty apartment. Gail hired Sasha to infiltrate. Leo somehow discovered the fraud and was gathering evidence. When they realized he was onto them, they silenced him, Rhodes finished. But how did they know he was investigating? He must have slipped up somewhere. The answer came from Rebecca Chen. He asked IT for access to archived financial records 2 weeks before it happened. Said it was for the quarterly audit. But those archives would have included records from when Gail first started at the company. Standard procedure required all unusual data access requests to be logged and reviewed by department heads, including Gail Mercer. She saw his request and knew he was looking in places he shouldn't, Elaine realized. So she activated her insurance policy, Sasha. Despite mounting evidence, the case stalled. Without Gail or Sasha to question, with Vanguard Metrics suddenly uncooperative, and with the CEO now referring all inquiries to their legal team, Elaine found her investigation hitting one roadblock after another. "We need to keep this quiet," she overheard the police captain telling Rhodes one evening. "Vanguard Metrics employs over 2,000 people in this city. The mayor's office is concerned about economic implications. Politics. Always interfering with justice." 3 months passed. The case remained open but inactive. Then, on a rainy March morning, Leo's brother Michael received a package in the mail. No return address, postmarked from Seattle. Inside, a USB stick, a printed screenshot of the missing slide deck and a note in messy block letters: "He didn't fail. They just didn't let him finish." Michael brought it straight to Elaine. The detective plugged the USB into a secure computer, her hopes rising, only to find the file had been corrupted. Their tech team could recover fragments, enough to confirm it matched Leo's hidden presentation, but crucial details were lost. "Someone wanted us to know the truth but covered their tracks," Elaine told Michael as they sat in her office. "This wasn't just about money laundering. Your brother found something else, something bigger." Michael nodded slowly. Leo always finished what he started. Even as kids, he was relentless once he got onto something. He pulled out his phone and showed Elaine a text from his brother, sent 2 days before his death: "If anything weird happens, check my cloud backup. Password is Dad's birthday plus the name of our first dog." Elaine felt a chill. He knew he might be in danger. With Michael's permission, they accessed Leo's personal cloud storage. Most files had been deleted remotely 3 hours after his death. Someone had his passwords. But one encrypted folder remained, its file name a seemingly random string of numbers. When decoded, it revealed something unexpected: not financial records, but emails between Gail Mercer and several high-profile names in politics and law enforcement. "Oh God," Elaine whispered as she read. This wasn't just corporate fraud. They were using the company to launder campaign contributions. Illegal donations through shell companies that Gail created. The implications were staggering. If proven, this could implicate a sitting judge, 2 state representatives, and, Elaine's stomach dropped, her own police captain. Now she understood why the investigation had been subtly discouraged. The next day, her captain called her into his office. "I'm reassigning you," he said without preamble. "Cold cases need your attention. Rhodes will take over the Camden investigation." "Any particular reason?" she asked, keeping her face neutral. "Resource allocation," he replied, not meeting her eyes. "Besides, that case is going nowhere. Sometimes you need fresh eyes." Elaine didn't argue. Instead, she made copies of everything she'd found and secured them in multiple locations. If something happened to her, the truth wouldn't die with her. That evening, she drove to Michael Camden's house. "We can't trust the official channels," she told him. "But I won't stop until we get justice for Leo." Michael's expression hardened. Neither will I. Leo and I used to have this saying as kids. Camden boys don't quit. He pulled out a business card. This reporter has been calling me for weeks. I think it's time I called him back. 1 week later, a small independent news outlet published the first in a series of articles titled The Vanguard Papers. Within days, the FBI opened an investigation. 2 federal prosecutors were assigned to the case. Elaine found herself sidelined but continued working unofficially, feeding information to Michael and the journalist. On April 15, Interpol located Gail Mercer in Zurich. Extradition proceedings began. 3 days later, a woman matching Sasha Brewer's description was spotted boarding a flight to Singapore, but she disappeared before local authorities could intercept her. During this time, Vanguard Metrics underwent dramatic changes. The CEO resigned. Board members stepped down. The company announced a structural reorganization and full cooperation with federal investigators. Room 3B, where Leo collapsed, was no longer used for meetings. The company converted it to storage, citing renovation plans. But employees whispered other reasons. The uncomfortable truth. The memory of Leo Camden, slumping forward as he tried to expose corruption that reached far beyond corporate greed. A custodian reported something strange. The projector in that room sometimes flickered to life on Monday mornings, despite being unplugged. Always showing the same frozen frame, a chart labeled Q4 exposure, missing its final bullet point. Elaine didn't believe in ghosts. But she did believe in unfinished business. 6 months after Leo's death, as she sat in a federal courthouse waiting to testify, she received a text from an unknown number. Some stories don't end. They just pause until someone brave enough comes along to continue them. Attached was a photo, a coffee shop in Bangkok. Seated at a corner table, partially obscured but recognizable, was Sasha Brewer. She was looking directly at the camera, a slight smile on her face. On the table before her, a green smoothie and a folder. Before Elaine could respond, the number disconnected. She thought about the ongoing investigation, the political careers destroyed, the corporate empire crumbling. And about Leo Camden, who started it all with his meticulous attention to detail and his unwavering commitment to truth. The case wasn't closed. Perhaps it never would be. The web of corruption stretched further than anyone had initially suspected, with new connections emerging weekly. As prosecutions moved forward, Elaine kept returning to one question: was Sasha merely Gail's accomplice, or was she something else entirely? The timing of that final text, the deliberate photo, it almost felt like she wanted Elaine to know she was out there. The detective still had Leo's recovered laptop. Late at night, she sometimes reviewed his files, searching for anything she might have missed. On one such evening, she noticed something odd about the corrupted USB file. The pattern of corruption wasn't random. It looked intentional, as if specific sections had been deliberately damaged. What was Sasha hiding? Or rather, what was she revealing, piece by calculated piece? Room 3B remained untouched at Vanguard Metrics, the projector occasionally flickering to life despite multiple repairs. And somewhere across the world, a woman who called herself Sasha Brewer continued her own investigation, her own justice, leaving breadcrumbs for a determined detective who refused to look away. Some stories don't end. Some secrets refuse to stay buried. And sometimes, the last bullet point on the presentation is the one that changes everything.